dry up, they get inflamed, they swell up. Inflammation and swelling creates mucus, so that's going to create congestion in the nose. And inflammation and swelling in the airways is going to cause the airways to narrow down. So now it's going to be harder to breathe through the nose, and it's going to be harder to breathe in general if you breathe through your mouth. Asthma can be caused by allergies. It can be caused by exercise. That is a very real thing that is holding a lot of people back from exercising. In an asthma attack, what happens is the bronchi, the bronchioles, get so constricted, there's barely any air moving in or out at all, and you have to rely on your puffer to open up the airway. The thing is that people with asthma are the most prone to nasal congestion and the most prone to breathing through their mouth, which is only going to make the situation worse, and it's going to keep holding them back. On the other hand, when you breathe through your nose, because there is going to be continuous airflow in the nasal cavity, over time, those tissues in the nasal cavities are going to stretch because of the airflow. And over time, those tissues are going to accept a longer length. So over time, it's going to be easier for you to breathe through your nose, but only if you breathe through your nose. Also, because the nose warms and humidifies the air that you breathe, you don't cause the rest of the airway to dry up, swell up, get inflamed, and narrow in the first place. The nose also purifies the air that you breathe. So believe it or not, but I don't know if you guys can see those hairs that are poking out of the nostril, but their job is not just to make the face look good, okay? Because they actually serve a purpose in protecting us from the outside world. And in our nasal cavity, there's a gas called nasal nitric oxide. So there's a lot of research on nitric oxide nowadays. And researchers are very excited because they're figuring all these things out, that what this gas is doing to our body. And we don't even know all the benefits yet. What we do know is that nitric oxide has 3 massive benefits to the human body. So nasal nitric oxide is a vasodilator. So that means that it opens up the blood vessels and it improves blood flow. It improves oxygen uptake to the blood. So that's going to improve your pump. And we figured this out a long time ago because Viagra basically works by upregulating nitric oxide production in the body. And that indeed does improve blood flow to specific areas of the body. Nitric oxide is a bronchodilator. So that means that it helps to open up the bronchioles and it helps to decongest your nose. And you guys are going to feel this firsthand today when we get to our exercise. Nitric oxide is also an antiviral and antimicrobial agent. So it protects us from the outside world. And it can stop respiratory tract viral infections from replicating in our epithelial cells. The nose is linked to the diaphragm. The mouth is linked to the chest. So if you breathe through your mouth, your chest is going to move. If I breathe through my nose, it's going to be lower here. And the diaphragm is this cone-shaped muscle that sits here underneath the thorax. When you inhale with the diaphragm descends down towards the pelvic floor, and everything that's between the pelvic floor and the diaphragm gets pushed downwards and outwards. And this 360-degree expansion of the rib cage is very, very important. It creates something known as intra-abdominal pressure, okay? And when the diaphragm descends back, when you exhale, the diaphragm descends back to its resting position. So with every single breath, there should be this expansion, retraction occurring in the rib cage. So why is this very important for us? Well, most people come to us for aesthetic goals, right? And the problem with that is that if you can't achieve certain positions when you exercise, it's going to be really hard to budge the body composition because you literally, first of all, the exercise selection is going to be very limited because you can't get into certain positions. You're probably going to be in a lot of pain. And also, when you get to these positions, now you're not able to create a lot of muscular tension, which is the true driver for creating adaptations in the body. So a lot of people who come to see us, they spend most of their existence in a position like this. And you might be like, oh my God, that is a terrible posture, okay? And actually, the thing is that there is no such thing as perfect posture, okay? Humans are not postures. Humans are movers. Humans need to be able to achieve different kinds of postures, a lot of different kinds of postures. And when we stay in one single posture for too long, that is when we are going to start running into problems. What is particularly problematic about this position here for a lot of people? Well, if you look at this guy here, they're in a very compressed position. So essentially, we can break down all human movement, okay? Running, walking, throwing, jumping, every exercise that you can do with your body, we can break it down to compressing the body and expanding the body. We have two different movement strategies. We have compression-based strategies and expansion-based strategies. We have different joint actions associated with compression and expansion. So the joint actions associated with compression are pronation, internal rotation, adduction, extension, dorsiflexion in the ankle, and exhalation. Okay, this is how I compress my body, right? On the other hand, our expansion-based movement strategies are external rotation, supination, flexion, abduction, inhalation, and plantar flexion in the ankle. So why is this so important? Your ability to have full movement variability, okay, your ability to have full movement potential and to be able to achieve all these end ranges of position, it is completely synonymous with your ability to expand and retract your rib cage. And when someone spends all their existence in a position like this, they're in a very compressed state, okay? So they become really, really good at all these joint actions associated with compression. And they're gonna be like, you're gonna be like, oh, can you put your arm over your head? And they're like, because their flexion is gonna be absolutely terrible. You're like, oh, can you externally rotate your arm? Oh, great. And the thing is that in fitness industry, we always like to look at these things like, so you have this kind of posture. That's because your anterior delts are tight, your pecs are tight, your rhomboids and your lower traps are weak, right? That is a compensation to what has occurred in the rib cage. And if you don't address what is going on in the rib cage, meaning teach this person how to expand the rib cage and retract the rib cage fully with every single breath, you're going to be spinning your wheels. And this is the show when it comes to teaching people how to move their bodies well and how to achieve these different kind of movement positions. So this, like, it'll be great to be able to get into the room with you guys sometimes, because there's so much application to this, and we can like modify exercises based on this information. And I'll show you one thing to really put this into context for you guys, is that if I want to achieve a position like this, on the left side of my body, all my joints are in a compressed state. I have dorsiflexion, I have extension in the hip, I have internal rotation, adduction, and pronation on the left side of my body. And on the right side of my body, I have the opposite joint actions. I have plantar flexion, flexion in the hip, external rotation, supination, and abduction. And if I was to come and uncoil myself from this position, the opposite would be happening on the opposite side of the body. So this is how human movement works. Every single step you take is the same concept in action. So what we are going to talk about as well is that what we can really, you can start taking action next time you see your client, is that diaphragmatic breathing also creates something known as intra-abdominal pressure. So as the rib cage expands and all the guts and the fluids are pushed outwards, this creates intra-abdominal pressure. Intra-abdominal pressure is important because now that you have your full movement potential, now we need to be able to contract muscles and use that full movement potential. So your ability to contract muscles is largely governed by your central nervous system. And you might have heard the saying that, you know, you can't fire a cannon from a canoe, right? So that means that our central nervous system is always sensing whether you are on a canoe or on solid ground. And if you're unstable, if you're on unstable ground, your body is trying to protect itself, and your central nervous system will trigger something known as neural inhibition. So now your force output is going to be downregulated. So you're going to be weak, and you know, you might not be the strongest guy in the world, but still you're not going to be able to create the maximum amounts of muscular tension, which is going to reduce your ability to create a hypertrophic stimulus for your body. So when you can teach your clients this very simple thing, okay? Shield. How to breathe behind the shield without letting this move. So it's going to be very simple. Lying them down on their back and telling them, shield, okay? You're going to punch them in the guts, and then they have to be able to breathe behind that shield. And now, when they can do it on the ground, get them up. Let's do it when we squat. Let's do it when we split squat. And this only is going to have a huge impact on the results that you're going to be able to get with your clients, and also the overall movement quality and the life quality of your client, because they're going to be better at, you know, doing stuff in general, and they're less likely to blow out their back when they're, you know, tying their shoelaces or something. So that is how breathing impacts your ability to move your body. Now we're going to get into the biggest thing that is holding people back, and busy and stressed out people back from achieving great results with their body composition and building muscle and losing body fat. And that is the state and the health of your autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is responsible for involuntary bodily functions. Things such as digestion, hormone production, all the repair processes around the body, blood pressure, heart rate, respiration. These are all things that we don't need to think about consciously, but they're humming along all the time. And our autonomic nervous system is taking care of them. Our autonomic nervous system is then subdivided to two different branches. So we have the sympathetic, also known as the fight or flight state of the autonomic nervous system. And we have the parasympathetic, also known as the rest and digest state of the autonomic nervous system. Depending on what state you're in, certain actions and processes inside your body are going to be inhibited, and certain ones are going to be amplified. So when your body is in a state of fight or flight, your body is kind of going, holy shit, there's a lion in the room right now, okay? Because there's a lion in the room right now. All those processes inside your body that are associated with your health in the future, there's no time for that. You know, all those processes stop, and instead resources are redirected towards improving your physical performance so that you can fight or run away faster. Digestion stops. Sex hormone production stops. You're not going to be thinking about reproducing when there's a lion in the room. Muscle building stops. All the recovery processes stop. Instead, you're going to get a big hit of adrenaline to give you instant energy. You're going to get a big hit of cortisol so that we can mobilize some stored energy in case the bloody lion keeps chasing you. Blood pressure goes up, heart rate goes up, respiration rate goes up. This is the human stress response, okay? On the other hand, when you're in a state of rest and digest, now it's all about your health in the future. You're digesting food, you're producing sex hormones, you might feel horny, you're building muscle and recovering from training, blood pressure is low, heart rate is low, respiration rate is slow. This is where you want to spend the most of our existence. And the thing is that overactive fight or flight state, overactive sympathetic nervous system has been linked to depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, cardiovascular problems. All these things that are rampant in our society, but did not exist when humans were still hunting and gathering. All these diseases have been linked back to the state and the fact that if you exist in a state of fight or flight, you're going to be more susceptible for those diseases. The other thing why this is really problematic for our clients and for everybody who's busy and stressed out, if you want to change your body composition, is that because you are in a very cortisol heavy environment, you are swimming in cortisol all day long. What does cortisol do? Cortisol blunts our ability to build muscle, and it actually favors fat gain in the long term. So it makes you less likely to build muscle. It makes you more likely to gain fat. And what it also does is that it plays around with our hunger cues, and it makes us crave sugary, fatty, high calorie foods. And this is the thing, like everybody can say, oh, you know, when your client is setting up their diet with you, like, yep, that's perfect. I can totally stick with this diet. But guess what? When you got COVID-19 and, you know, shit's happening and they're walking around in coals and woolies and you have all these colors beaming at them, telling them to buy this. And then if they're a bit agitated, it's going to be really hard to resist when everything inside your body is telling you to do it. If you are someone who is existing in a state of fight or flight. So what can we then do about this information? What is the takeaway from this? Well, it is very important for us, not just for you, but for every single person. It is very important for us to be able to achieve levels of high sympathetic arousal, levels of high fight or flight, because if you want to train hard, if you want to truly give your body a reason to build muscle or to adapt, you need to be able to push it. And the only way that you can do that is if you can achieve a state of high sympathetic fight or flight arousal. Then you need to be able to match that with an equal amount of rest and digest and relaxation. The problem is that most people are stuck, and we can actually measure this with something known as heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the variability between subsequent heartbeats. The more variability you have, that means that you're able to achieve levels of high heart rate and high sympathetic arousal, and you're also able to truly relax yourself. And this is a sign of a healthy autonomic nervous system and a high stress tolerance, okay? When your heart rate variability is low, when there's very little variability between your heartbeats, that means that you are now someone who is stuck in the middle. So you're unable to push yourself hard physically, and you are equally unable to truly relax yourself. And these are the clients who come to us, and they just, some people, you just look at them like, this guy's so exhausted that there's just nothing left in them. And they just don't have that pop to be able to really push themselves. And it's those same people who at nighttime, when they're supposed to go to bed, the mind is it just doesn't stop. And that is because they are unable to achieve a low level of sympathetic arousal. And this might be you. If you've ever experienced not being able to fall asleep at night, still being really amped up, that is because you have failed to activating the rest and digest state of your autonomic nervous system. So what influences this stuff? Well, anything that you perceive as stressful is going to activate the fight or flight state of your body. So this is the curse of being a human. We can, by thought alone, we can put ourselves into a state of fight or flight. So anything that you perceive as negative, an email, deadline, traffic, someone flipping you off, COVID-19, doesn't matter. It has the power to activate the state of fight or flight. And what are some things then that activate the rest and digest state of a body? Well, positive social interaction, spending time in the sunshine, spending time doing your favorite hobbies. All these things that have been really hard to do for the next 6 months, by the way. All these things are something that will really activate the rest and digest state of your body. And there is one thing that does actually both. It activates the fight or flight and your rest and digest, and that is your breathing. And this information has been known by ancient cultures for thousands of years, but the Western world, we've just forgotten about it. And if you don't rediscover this, and if you don't apply this in your life, you are going to have to pay a heavy price for it. And this was actually re-verified in 2017 in a Stanford University study, where the researchers were able to show that the area of the brain that controls our breathing is reciprocally connected to the area of the brain that controls your autonomic nervous system arousal levels. So fast and shallow breathing is going to increase your levels of arousal and activate the fight or flight state. Slow, deep breathing is going to decrease your arousal levels and activate the rest and digest state of your body. So how can we apply this information? Teach your clients after your training session. It doesn't have to be during the training session, but teach them that when you're out of the door for 5 minutes, slow down your breathing and do the exercise that we're about to do later today. Slow down your breathing so much that you can feel more saliva come into your mouth, because this is a key indicator. And we can see this is a graph of all the things that happen inside our body when we're in a state of fight or flight on the right side, and when we're in a state of rest and digest on the left side. One of the things that happens is that when you're in a state of fight or flight, you have very weak stimulation of salivary flow. When you're in a state of rest and digest, now you have a strong stimulation of salivary flow. So this can be a really useful, super easy thing to tell people. After the session's over, calm down your breathing so much that you can have more saliva in your mouth and then go about your day. And at least for that moment, this person is going to come out of that state of stress and is going to be calmed down. But what if you're someone who is habitually, unconsciously breathing fast and shallow and through your mouth? That's a problem, because now you're going to be someone who is, but just with your breathing, existing in a state of fight or flight. And you are going to have problems with your health in the long term, and you're going to be unable to build muscle and unable to lose body fat. So what can we do about this? How do we influence the unconscious breathing habits? And now we're going to get into conversation of what happens inside the body biochemically when we breathe. And that's going to lead us down towards the answer to what to do to slow down your unconscious breathing habits so that you're going to be someone who's going to be existing in a state of rest and digest, and it's going to be easy for you to build muscle. So we're going to follow the breath all the way down from the nose, all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, to a place called alveoli. So the alveoli are small air sacs that are located in the very end of the respiratory tree. This is a critical place because this is where oxygen is diffused to the blood and carbon dioxide is taken from the blood. So it's very important that the air that you breathe actually gets down all the way to the alveoli. What if you breathe fast and shallow and through your mouth, especially when you exercise? You're going to be taking in a lot of air and you're going to be doing a lot of work breathing all that air. But because your breathing is so fast and shallow, less of that air is going to travel all the way down to the alveoli. And when it does, the oxygen is going to have less time to diffuse to the blood. On the other hand, when you take less but fuller breaths through the nose, now because you're breathing slower and you're breathing less air, more of that air is going to travel all the way down to the alveoli, and the oxygen is going to have more time to diffuse to the blood. So in studies where they've compared people who have adapted to full-time nasal breathing consistently, they are able to achieve the same level of VO2 max, mouth breathing and nasal breathing, but during nasal breathing, they're taking 20% less breaths. So 20% less breathing is a massive reduction in the rate of perceived exertion, and all that energy that's going towards supporting your respiratory muscles because you're breathing heavy now can be saved for your locomotion and for your upper body muscles. So that is one of the reasons why when it comes to breathing, less is more. And now we're going to get into the bloodstream. The oxygen is going to be taken to the blood, carbon dioxide is going to be taken from the blood. When we get to bloodstream, oxygen binds to hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is an oxygen-carrying protein that is found inside your red blood cells. One hemoglobin protein has 4 different binding spots for molecules of oxygen. And you can think of hemoglobin as the car and oxygen as the passenger that latches on, and then hemoglobin takes it to wherever, around the body, to wherever it is needed, the most, okay? And this is where carbon dioxide comes into play. Because when it comes to breathing, carbon dioxide is not just a waste gas, because carbon dioxide is required for the third piece of the puzzle, for oxygen to be released to the tissues and the cells. So carbon dioxide is the catalyst for oxygen release to occur. So if your blood carbon dioxide saturations are in the correct amount, if they're higher, this causes the bond between hemoglobin and oxygen to become weaker. So now more oxygen is going to be able to be released to the brain, to the muscles, and to the organs. When there's more oxygen released, this is going to have a positive impact on the health, on the functioning of those organs, and on your physical and mental performance. When blood carbon dioxide saturations are low, this causes the bond between hemoglobin and oxygen to become stronger. So now less oxygen is going to be released to the brain, to the muscles, and to the organs. This is going to have negative impact on the health of those organs and on negative impact on your physical and mental performance. So what I've just explained to you guys, this is known as the Bohr Effect. And this Bohr Effect was found in 1904 by a guy called Christian Bohr. And what you're looking at right now is known as Oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve. So this curve and this graph explains to us how this relationship and this dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin is changing depending on how we breathe. So on our y-axis, we have the oxyhemoglobin percent saturation. So that means that how many percent of all the hemoglobin is saturated by oxygen. So the higher the number on the y-axis, the less oxygen is going to be released to the brain, to the muscles, and to the organs. On the x-axis, we have the partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood. On our black curve, we have our baseline, and we're now going to have a look at what happens to this baseline curve when we breathe differently. When you breathe through your nose, you're going to be taking in less air, but you're also exhaling less carbon dioxide. As a result, your blood carbon dioxide levels are going to stay higher in the correct amount. When your blood carbon dioxide level stays higher, that causes this curve to shift to the right. When the curve shifts to the right, now the bond between hemoglobin and oxygen is going to be reduced, and more oxygen is going to be released to the brain, to the muscles, and to the organs. On the other hand, when you breathe through your mouth, you take in more air, but you exhale more carbon dioxide. As a result, your blood carbon dioxide saturation is going to be low. That causes the bond between hemoglobin and oxygen to become stronger because this curve has now shifted to the left. When the bond is stronger, now there's less oxygen released from the hemoglobin to the muscles, to the brain, and to the organs. So when we look at this graph and we have drawn this line from 50 millimeters of mercury of partial pressure of oxygen, and we see where does this line intersect with our right shifted nasal breathing curve, our baseline curve, and our left shifted curve, mouth breathing curve, then we follow this line all the way to the y-axis to see how many percent of hemoglobin is saturated by oxygen. And we can see that in the left shifted, in the mouth breathing curve, when there's less carbon dioxide, there's more oxygen bound up in the hemoglobin, not being able to be released to the brain, to the muscles, and to the organs. So that means that over-breathing, breathing too much air, is actually kind of depriving your cells of oxygen. So now we know that carbon dioxide levels need to stay in the correct amount, okay? How do we do that? And how do we influence our unconscious breathing habits? To understand how this works, we need to understand that the drive to breathe and the feeling of breathlessness, it is not driven by a lack of oxygen. It is driven by a rise in carbon dioxide. There is a receptor in the brain called a chemoreceptor. The chemoreceptor's sensitivity to carbon dioxide will dictate your unconscious breathing habits. If your chemosensitivity, if your tolerance to carbon dioxide is low, that means that even a very modest increase in carbon dioxide in the blood is going to cause you to breathe heavier, to exhale the carbon dioxide, okay? If you're someone whose tolerance to carbon dioxide is low, your unconscious breathing is going to be fast and shallow, and most likely through the mouth. What does that mean for your autonomic nervous system? You're going to be someone who's existing in a state of fight or flight, and it's going to be really hard for you to relax. Because you exist in a state of fight or flight, that's going to have negative health implications long term. And this is going to cause you to be unable to build muscle. And it's going to cause you to be more susceptible for fat gain and more susceptible to not be able to stick to your diet. Also, because there's low levels of CO2, this is going to have an effect on the bond between hemoglobin and oxygen is going to be stronger. So less oxygen is going to be released to the brain, to the muscles, and to the organs. So now your physical and mental performance is going to suffer even more. So this is why low tolerance to carbon dioxide, this is pretty not a great situation. So instead, the show is to have high levels of carbon dioxide tolerance. When you can do that, now you can tolerate more CO2 in the blood without feeling breathless. So when you exercise, you're not going to be feeling breathless from what you used to be feeling breathless from. You're going to be someone whose breathing is going to be unconsciously slow and light. You're going to be someone who's existing in a state of rest and digest. You're going to be healthier long term. You're going to be more apt to build muscle and lose body fat. Also, because you can tolerate more CO2 in your blood, now the bond between hemoglobin and oxygen is going to be weaker. And oxygen release and oxygen delivery to the tissues and the organs and the brain is going to be improved. So ultimately, the show is to increase our tolerance to carbon dioxide. How do we do that? With stress, because when you stress the human body is going to adapt. Before we get to the stress and the exercise, I want to do an assessment with you guys. Because in 2017, there was a study led by a guy called Kiezel et al. In this study, these researchers tried to figure out a non-invasive way to assess the quality of someone's breathing and to identify breathing dysfunctions. So this study concluded that a breath hold time after a passive exhalation accompanied with a 4-question mini questionnaire is the most accurate way to assess the quality of your breathing. And if you pass this test, there is an 89% chance that you do not have a breathing dysfunction. But if you fail, there is a very high chance that you do have a breathing dysfunction, and you have a lot to gain if you start paying attention to this. So before we do the test, I want to say that if anyone's pregnant here, you're not allowed to do these breath hold exercises. And pregnant people in general are not allowed to do it because it can have an effect with their developing fetus. If you're not pregnant, let's go. So don't do this yet. I'm going to explain what we're going to do. We're going to take a normal breath in through the nose, normal breath in out through the nose. This should be an inaudible breath. Okay, you shouldn't hear this. After the exhalation, you're going to pinch your nose and we're going to start the timer. We're going to see how many seconds does it take until you feel the first stress to breathe, the first unconscious stress to breathe. So it might be just a feeling of, oh yeah, okay, I really want to stop now. I really want to breathe. Or it might be a twitch of the neck muscle or a twitch of the diaphragm. Whatever it is for you, when you feel the first unconscious stress to breathe, I need you to unblock your nose and stop the timer. And it is important. This is not a maximum breath hold time test. The first breath after this test should be controlled, like that, completely controlled and silent. You should not have to gasp for air, because if you do, that means that you cheated and you went too far. So let's get some timers, guys. Bring out the phones. And we are now going to do a sit upright. Just let's take a few normal breaths through the nose. After the next breath, I want you to take a normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose. After the exhalation, pinch your nose, start the timer. Hold your breath. Again, this is not a maximum breath hold time test. Hold your breath until you feel the first unconscious stress to breathe. When you feel the first unconscious stress to breathe, unblock your nose and stop the timer. And the first breath in should be silent. It should not be a big gasp for air. It should be a very easy breath. Okay, do we have someone still going? All right, cool. I want you to hold on to that number. Don't put it away. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. These are all clear signs of a breathing dysfunction. And the more often you experience this, the more likely it is that you have a breathing dysfunction. So I want you to think, how often do I experience this? Very often, sometimes, or never. Question number 1, do you get stressed during the day? Question number 2, do you experience cold hands or feet? Very often, sometimes, or never. Question number 3, do you catch yourself yawning or sighing regularly throughout the day? Question number 4, do you breathe through your mouth at night? And if you wake up with a dry mouth or you snore, you do. So, if your breath hold time was above 25 seconds and you didn't answer yes to these questions, there is an 89% chance that you do not have a breathing dysfunction. If your breath hold time was below 25 seconds, there's a very high chance that you have a breathing dysfunction, and you have a lot to gain from this because your unconscious breathing is going to be fast and shallow, and you're going to be experiencing a lot of breathlessness during exercise. 40 seconds is the goal. So when you get to 40 seconds, now you're going to be someone who is really can maintain nasal breathing at a very high intensity exercise with no problem. And you're going to be someone who unconscious breathing is going to be very slow. So the lower the number you got, the more you have to gain from this. So let's now practice. And we're going to do 2 exercises. For the first one, I want you guys to stand up for me, please. And I want you to stand up, and what we're going to do is we're going to do 5 repetitions. Don't do it yet. We're going to take a normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose. After the exhalation, I want you to pinch your nose. I want you to start marching on the spot. You're going to walk for 20 steps. After 20 steps, you're going to unblock your nose and take a breath in as slowly as possible. And then you're just going to passively let the air leave your body. And then you're going to breathe slowly for 20 seconds before we repeat. And we do 5 reps. So let's do it together. Take a normal breath in through the nose. Normal breath out through the nose. After the exhalation, pinch your nose and start walking on the spot. 20 steps. When you get to 20, I want you to unblock your nose and I want you to take the breath in as slowly as possible. And then I want you to just let the air leave the body passively. And I want you to pay attention. How does my breathing feel right now? Does it feel easy, regular? Does it feel, is it nose blocked? Does it feel unsatisfying? How much saliva do you have in your mouth right now? I want you to tune into those things. Okay. We're going to be doing it again. Take a normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose. After the exhalation, pinch your nose and start marching on the spot, 20 steps. So we're allowing carbon dioxide to build up during the breath hold because we're not exhaling. The CO2 is building up. And you should start experiencing some level of air hunger and breathlessness. And that's what we want because we need to stress the body with some air hunger and breathlessness so that the adaptation is going to be to increase your tolerance to carbon dioxide if you do this kind of exercises. So between the exercises, just breathe slowly. Just let the air come and go. We're going to do 3 more. So now we're going to take again, normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose. After the exhalation, pinch your nose and start walking. What we're also doing is that nitric oxide is building up in the nasal cavity. And if you recall, nitric oxide helps to open up the airways. It helps to decongest the nose. So that's why I want you to, when you unblock your nose and you inhale as slowly as possible. And then just exhale, just let the air leave your body passively. Just let the breath be soft. And we're going to do 2 more. So again, take a normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose. After the exhalation, pinch your nose and march for 20 steps. This is something that I like to do before training. So it really opens up the nose and it really, because nitric oxide also improves blood flow. So it's a really good thing to do before training or anytime that you're feeling that your nose is blocked. And this is like the level 1 of these kind of exercises. So this is like how you would warm up for the, the squats and the deadlifts of these type of exercises that are going to increase your tolerance to carbon dioxide. So this is how you would warm up to that. And we're going to do a last one. Take a normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose. Now this time, I don't want you to count to 20. I want you to go for as long as you can. And when you feel a strong hunger for air, I want you to unblock your nose and take a breath in slowly as you can. Okay, so normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose. After the exhalation, pinch your nose, march on the spot, count how many steps you can get to, and just keep going, keep going. Don't stop at 20. I want you to keep relaxing into the feeling of air hunger. It's slightly uncomfortable. I need you to be able to relax into it. And when you unpinch your nose, I need you to inhale slowly. And then return back to normal breathing. Then we're going to sit down, please. And this exercise is going to be great to teach to your clients and to really, for yourself as well, to really activate the rest and digest state and to really prepare their body for optimal quality sleep. So I want you to sit upright. I need you to think about you have a piece of string that is holding you up from the top of your head. I want you to tune into your breathing. I want you to tune into the amount of saliva in your mouth. And I want you to place your hands on the point of bottom two ribs. And I want you to visualize with each inhalation, the diaphragm descending down towards the pelvic floor and everything being pushed downwards and outwards. And with each inhalation, you should feel your rib cage expanding 360 degrees. And with each exhale, the diaphragm comes back to the resting position and the rib cage retracts 360 degrees. So initiate each inhalation with the expansion of the rib cage. There should be no movement here. And initiate each exhalation with the retraction of the rib cage. So inhale, expand the rib cage. And exhale, retract the rib cage. And now we're going to bring in the carbon dioxide part. So I want you to keep doing that. Keep paying attention to the rib cage. Now I want you to be able to introduce some air hunger to you guys. So I want you guys to experience air hunger by slowing down the speed of the air when the air is coming in and when the air is coming out. So I want you to tune into the speed of the air and the amount of turbulence in the nasal cavities. So slow down the speed of the air on the way in so much that there's less turbulence for the nasal hairs and less disturbance for the nasal hairs. So I want you to think about having a feather in front of your nose. On the inhale, you're not allowed to draw the feather in. On the exhale, you're not allowed to blow the feather out. So after a while, you should start feeling a low, tolerable hunger for air. So now the CO2 level is rising, your brain is picking it up, it's trying to get you to breathe more. You're experiencing air hunger. I need you to be able to relax into that feeling and slow down the speed of the air and just relax into that subtly uncomfortable feeling of air hunger. So keep tuning into the amount of saliva in your mouth. Keep your tongue on the roof of the mouth. Keep slowing down the speed of the air as the air is coming in. And keep slowing down the speed of the air on the way out. It should be very hard to notice your breathing. If there was someone in the room right now watching you, it should be very hard for them to see you breathe. You should never hear your breathing at rest. Okay, we're going to do 2 more minutes. For the last 2 minutes, I want you to really experience some air hunger here. So I want you to make your breathing so light that you're breathing so much less air than what you would like to. And it's almost like a feeling of having an anchor inside your body, and the anchor is sinking deeper and deeper, and you just want to take a bigger breath. That's when you know, when you get to that feeling, you know that you are in the right place. I need you to be able to relax there. I need you to be able to breathe less than what you're comfortable with. In the last minute, I want you to slow down your breathing so much. There's barely any air coming in at all. I want you to slow down your breathing so much and you're barely breathing at all. And then you can take a few normal breaths through the nose. Just allow it to be as big as you want. Really move the ribs. Okay. Did anybody experience some air hunger here? If we could just get like some show of hands here when we did this exercise. Yeah, some people experienced a lot, some a little bit less. Did you guys feel the rib cage expanding? Yes. This, teaching your clients how to expand their rib cage. Did you guys notice a difference in the amount of saliva in your mouth? Just more, same, or less? More, got a lot of mores here. So that is a key indicator for you to become aware of, and something that you can teach your clients. Hey, after your training session, let's put you on the ground. Let's do this exercise that we just did. Let's slow down your breathing so much that you're barely breathing at all. And you can feel more saliva in your mouth. That means that you have now activated the rest and digest state of your body, and you're ready to go about your day. And just hope that they're not going to go and have like a triple shot long black afterwards, because it kind of defeats the purpose. So we only did that for a couple of minutes, guys. I imagine if that was your unconscious way of breathing. And to bring all the lessons that we have learned today, to bring it all into very simple guidelines, to live your best life, to have your best chance to have a great body composition and to live long, healthy life, you have to breathe through your nose, you have to breathe slower, and you have to breathe less. And the way to achieve this unconsciously is to increase your tolerance to carbon dioxide. That is the show, okay? So if you guys are excited about this, if you want to truly embody this information and take action on what you have learned today, I can help you out and I can coach you through it. So on my website at coachbohr.com, I have created a breathing mastery course. So this course, we have 12 different modules that go into breathing with different parts of our life and how breathing relates to that part of our life and how we can optimize breathing to get the most out of that part of our life. And we go even into more depth than what we did today. And in our practice and exercise portal, I have 13 different kind of exercises that are demonstrated by myself explaining what we're doing and demonstrated by my girlfriend who you actually see what we're doing. And these exercises will improve your tolerance to carbon dioxide. They will improve your lung function. They will improve your aerobic fitness. Some of these exercises will really ramp you up. Some of these exercises will really slow you down. So improve the quality of your sleep. Some of these exercises will decongest your nose. Some exercises I teach how to breathe when you actually move your body. And some exercises I teach how to breathe and create the maximum amounts of tension, how to really brace your body when you move. And the best part about this exercise is that they require no equipment at all. And they're very simple, they're very powerful, and it's very easy to combine them with what you're already doing. And you can turn a regular walk into a very challenging, aerobically challenging exercise by applying these exercises to what you're already doing, which is going for walks or whenever you are sitting down. So if you're willing to put into the work, if you're willing to put in the work for this, and if you're really willing to show up, do the exercises, and do that consistently, this is going to absolutely transform your life. So if you're excited about that, go to coachbohr.com and get started with that. And that brings us to our end today. So if you guys have any questions about the course,